Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special Zoom in on a fresh conversation for the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. Today is February 24th, so it is about sports. And my good friend Carolyn Sanders James, hey Carolyn, has
Hi.
come to spend the afternoon with us and talk about Miss Althea Gibson. For those of you who don't know, she was one of the first Black, maybe the first, and Carolyn will give you all that information, tennis player in the United States. And so, Carolyn, thank you so much for being a part of this program. It has been a long month to read aloud every day. And we want to take our hats off to everyone who has participated, including you, Carolyn. I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about Miss Althea Gibson.
Good evening, Donna, and I'd like to thank you very much for being a member today to read about Althea Gibson, one of my favorite people in sports.
Thank you.
The book is written by Megan Reid, and it's called Althea Gibson: The Story of Tennis Fleet of a Foot Girl. And the author herself, Miss Reid, this is her first children's book. And she is noted for in books and also on television. She lived in Brooklyn, New York, and she lived in several states, and she also lived abroad a few years ago. But anyway, I'd like to just talk about Althea Gibson herself.
Let's see the cover of the book, Carolyn.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Althea Gibson, The Story of Tennis, Fleet of Foot Girl. Okay.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Althea was born August 27, 1927 in Clarendon County, which is in South Carolina, which is the home part where I was actually born, in Clarendon County, that area. She died in 2003 in East Orange, New Jersey, respiratory failure. Her parents, Daniel and Annabelle Gibson, were very proud parents of her. Althea was married to Sidney Lewin in 1983 until 1988. And before that, she was married to William Dolvin in 1965 to 1976. Althea Gibson was the first American tennis player and professional golfer as well. And one of the first athletes to cross the color line, international tennis. And in 1956, she became the first Afro-American woman to win a Grand Slam title. And she was right-handed, and she was tall and slinky. She was 5'11". The following year, she won Wimbledon and the U.S. National and the U.S. Open, and then won again in 1958, and was voted the first female athlete by the year by the Associated Press the same year. She won 11 Grand Slams during that particular time. Ms. Gibson was inducted into the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame, and she was one of the greatest players ever to live. And in the early 1960s, she became part of the Women Professional Golf Tour. So the book that I'm reading today, which I showed you about Althea Gibson, The Story of Tennis Fleet of Foot Girl by Miss Reid. The championship at Wimbledon, England, were first the most famous tennis athlete in the world compete to the rest. Sharp white collars, sharp white pleats, sharp white lines. But in 1940, Harlem, the quickest, tallest, most fearless athlete was Althea Gibson. At 13, Althea did not know Wimbledon, but she didn't care when summer came and school let out. The only thing on her mind was this: the play streets, up on a 442nd Street. I remember those days. For 2 months, neighborhood streets were barricaded off and kids ruled the hot asphalt. Althea, Althea. Everywhere she went, they called the fleet of foot girl to play. Althea played all right, stickball with the boys, basketball with the girls, paddle ball with everyone and everyone who would hit with her. She reigned supreme if she put her mind to it. Althea was always the best at everything except sitting still. When summer was over and traffic returned to Harlem's busy streets, she still needed to move. Althea heard about a place 6 blocks up where Black folks could play tennis, the Cosmopolitan Tennis Club. She walked in like she already belonged, grabbed a ball and a racket and started to swing. Who is she? The grown-ups at the club asked. She could sprint and turn and leap like a natural. I am Althea Gibson, she announced, smiling widely. You should play with me. She found her new play street on the club's court. She loved the way the ball cracked, pow, against her racket, taunt strings. She started to spend more and more time at the Cosmopolitan. There, Althea wasn't just a scrappy, long-legged tomboy. No, she was pure talent, pure force. The managers knew her family didn't have much money, so they let her do odd jobs in exchange for lessons. Maybe, just maybe, the folks at the Cosmopolitan thought this fleet of foot girl could play tennis against the country's best. There was one problem: laws and white people prejudice kept Black and brown Americans from claiming the same right to work, vote, buy property, and live freely. Black people could play tennis in their own league, but never white people. Clubs like Cosmopolitan was rare. Who would challenge Althea when she had already beat everyone there? Being the quickest, tallest, most fearless player in Harlem wasn't enough for Althea. She wanted to be a tennis champion. She started traveling for matches and training with other Black players in the American Tennis Association. She had a big serve and a bigger personality. She was so eager to prove herself that she wasn't always kind. She never wished other players good luck and would taunt them while they hit. She even threw a temper tantrum a time or two. Nothing felt better like winning. And she hated when something got in the way of that. There was another tennis association where women could compete for championships, but everyone in it was white. White women could play tennis on better courts with better equipment and compete at the International Grand Slam in Paris and Queens and Wimbledon. To be the best in the world, Althea would have to leave the all-Black leagues and play the strongest champions, no matter what nationality or race they were. Journalists marveled at her wins and began to write about her in the newspaper. Famous players argued her cause they saw that she deserved more. And back in New York, kids still took stories about that girl, Althea, how she beat anyone in netball and handball and fly through hopscotch so fast you couldn't even see her. A Harlem kid like them. Slowly, the world was changing. Afro-Americans had been told separate but equal for too long, but Althea knew she could be more equal. She could be the best. Finally, in 1950, Althea accepted to the US Championship. She lost her first set of matches, but she refused to quit. By then, she learned a little more about being gracious loser. I don't mind getting beat. The more I am beaten, the more I learn, she said. Sometimes she was lonely in the locker rooms. Althea was left out of other players, inside jokes and secret. She wasn't rich. She didn't look like them. She didn't play like them. But when she charged the net, no one could doubt her confidence and power. When the season ended, she still craved the court, just like one autumn came, and the play streets. Barricades were put away. She couldn't just sit around. Althea was off to the travel, forehand in France, ground strokes in Germany, backhands in Burma, serving in Sweden. Althea just kept winning and winning in Paris. She even became the first Black person to win a Grand Slam, but Althea had set her sight on claiming the silver trophy at Wimbledon, the biggest and the best tournament of them all. It was in 1947, and the Fleet of Foot girl had earned it. For those 2 weeks in Wimbledon, Althea played better than ever. Her shots were clearer, her volleys were quicker. Nothing was going to keep her away from the championship. When she strode into center court to compete for the Wimbledon finals, hers was the only Black face in the sea of sharp white collars and sharp white pleats. So Althea focused on the grassy courts, sharp white lines, just like the ones at the Cosmopolitan, or the ones she drew from her chalk on the play street. She took a deep breath and bounced the white tennis ball. 1, 2, 3. Almost before she knew it, game, set, match. That year, Althea became the first ever Black person, man or woman, to win a championship at Wimbledon. And then in 1958, she did it again. The Queen handed Althea her prize. She danced and sang with joy at Wimbledon championship ball. But best of all, back in New York that summer, they threw her a ticker tape parade. Althea, Althea. They cheered loudly for the quickest, tallest, most fearless girl Harlem has ever seen. And her last words was, I want the public to remember me as they knew me, strong, athletic, smart, and healthy. Remember me strong and tough and quick, fleet of foot and tenacious. So that ends the great story of Althea. And by the way, in 2019, her statue was unveiled at the ALTHEA Stadium in Flushing, New York, where in 1997, the fierce and our most famous mayor, Dave Dinkins, where he named the ALTHEA Stadium after Arthur Ashe when he died back in 1993. But she was one of the greatest tennis players ever. And the Williams sisters and many others, they look up to her as their fierce leader.
And so you have family members who are very close to the tennis world, right?
Yes, I did. My sister Alice, when she moved to New York back in the 90s, back in the 80s, I should say, in high school before in the South, she was a tennis player, also a basketball player. She also ran track, and they won the championship several times during the years while she was at Wilson High School. So when she moved to New York, she started working at the United States Postal Service. She was in New York for a few years, and then she moved out to Los Angeles at the Postal Service because she was transferred out there. And she started like a tennis team in the post office, and that went well. But she died in 1976,
Mm.
you know, for heart failure. But she was very active, and she idoled Althea Gibson.
Well, I think Althea and all the rest would be looking sideways at what is being worn on the court these days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When they had to have a certain length and they had to have a certain top. And but I think that the ladies who play tennis now are more comfortable because they're freer to do the sport and in whatever they want to wear. So thank you so much for doing the International Great Read, Black Read Aloud Day month for Black history. And Althea Gibson certainly was one of the best. And it's because of her path that she laid that we see others coming forward and doing great things in the tennis world. So thank you so much, Carolyn. Have a
Thank
great
you.
afternoon,
You're
and we'll talk
welcome.
to you really soon.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right,
good
good
evening.
night.